I know.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Our country is
All
a
right, you
big...
would do the roll call.
Councilmember Bryan? Mayor Phelan?
Here.
Councilmember Blake?
Here.
Councilmember Greenberg?
Here.
And Councilmember Rainville is excused tonight.
We didn't want her on a plane. And since all we have here, not all, but since the only ones in attendance are the
Turn on our microphones.
Sheriff's Department, we forego the meeting policy. And I'll look for an approval, motion to approve the agenda. Approve or amend.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
unless there's any amendments, motion to approve the agenda?
I second it.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So first up is going to be the sheriff, so Commander Heath, if you would do the honors here.
Yes.
Before you start, I would just like to read something that we would like to send back with you. But I was looking back, we've had a contract with the sheriff for 8 years. And I still remember those negotiations. I was looking through clippings from 8 years ago, and it was a tense time in November and December, and on December 27th, it all came together, and we formalized the contract on December 27th, 2011, and there was a lead in the article in the Twin Cities, the Pioneer Press, and it said, "The sheriff is sticking around town after all, and now then." And 8 years later, we are glad you have. So 8 years later, our partnership is still strong. We as residents of the city of Nowthen are grateful for the professional service we continue to receive from the dedicated men and women throughout the Anoka County Sheriff's Department. We appreciate your constant service to help keep Nowthen a wonderful country place to live. When we have an emergency, whether it's a daytime or dead of night, a holiday or a weekend, or frigid winter or sweltering summer, it's our law enforcement deputies that are first to respond and help out in our times of needs. And we greatly appreciate that. So for all of this, we thank you and thank your troops. And so with our gratitude, Mayor Jeff Phelan and the Nowthen City Council, on behalf of the residents of Nowthen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've got a small card that we've got here too, if you take it back and share with the rest of the staff, and a copy of that. But to let them know, we really do appreciate. So much of what you do is unseen. But I know, I was looking at the calls, we had 2,000 calls for service last year. Almost 100 of those are medicals. And I tell you, when you're having a medical and a person in uniform shows up, it makes a world of difference. And from the people that 8 years ago weren't sure we needed this service, I've talked to so many of those that were opposed to it at the time, and so grateful because of the interactions they've had and the support that they've seen. So it really has been wonderful for our community, and you and your peers are responsible for that. So thank you very much, Sheriff, and to all of your staff. Thank you from now then.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Now I'll let you do your stuff.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, as you know, tonight is our annual Meet the Deputy night. It's a chance for us to have our staff, who are actually the ones who are serving your city and the citizens here, come out so you guys can meet them. You get to talk to me every month, which is, after all the years now, it's probably lost its luster. But we like being able to.
I will say, we've appreciated having you as liaison, and I appreciate when there's a question, you are so quick to respond and respond thoroughly. And I greatly appreciate it, because it really has been a good partnership that way. We feel like we're partners. If there's anything, I know I've got immediate contact, and that's very helpful. So we do appreciate having you here. We miss you when you're gone, but you've always provided good fill-ins.
Well, thank you. But truly, all of the credit goes to our deputies who are out here day and night, like you mentioned before. serving the citizens. They're the ones handling those calls in the rain and in the dark and in the snow and going to all those things. It's not me. I sit in an office and I come and talk about the work that they do every month. So I really appreciate the fact that the city likes to do this. I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to recognize that. So without further ado, I'd like to let these gentlemen speak for themselves. I know you know Sheriff Stewart, but with me tonight is Deputy Jesse Cutler, Deputy Eric Durner, as well as Sergeant Mike Slavic from our office. And if it's all right with the council, I'd like to give them just a few seconds to introduce themselves to the council. Maybe if the council has any questions of them, feel free and ask. But I'd like to start that way tonight.
And we have a fairly light agenda tonight, and obviously no other audience, so take whatever time you need, gentlemen. We again, we appreciate it. We'd like to know what it's like serving in the city, because again, it's one of those things, most of us, nothing against you, but we hope to never see you. Because that, we tell that to our firefighters too. We hope that all we do is train. But we do know that 12-hour shifts gets to be a long time, and it's got to be a challenge when it's fairly quiet and suddenly you have to jump into action. But so give us some idea what it's like working now then for those of us. And then I would like to also ask, I don't know if there is a ride-along program in the Sheriff's Department, because we have a number of people on the council that have expressed interest in that, so we could follow up on that afterwards too.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you.
So,
Well, who would like to go first? Sheriff or?
That doesn't matter.
Well, go ahead, Jesse. We'll start with you, in case your partner gets.
Yeah. Are you gonna talk? No? I'm Deputy Jesse Cutler. I've worked with the Sheriff's Office on patrol sit for 5 years. I became a canine handler about 1.5 to 2 years ago. We went through an 18-week canine school, and we were dual certified in the National Police Canine Association and the United States Police Canine Association in patrol and narcotics. Now we're just certified by the USPCA. He's had several fines in the street with tracks and things like that, and he's also found several amounts of narcotics too, so ranging from marijuana, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine. So those are the things that he's certified to detect. That's pretty much it about him. We're also certified, we're also certified in SCIDS, which is a SWAT and Canine Tactical Deployment Team.
Huh.
So we accompany our SWAT team in those types of deployments. So
What's his name?
his name's Diesel. He's
Diesel?
2.5 years old. Yep. He's a Belgian Malinois that comes from the Czech Republic. So he was shipped over here on a 12-hour plane ride, and then it was an additional 10-hour car ride from where he came from.
So they train, that's the breed of choice for training?
It depends what the agency wants, and our agency selected 2 Belgian Malinois, but you can get anything from a German Shepherd, Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherd, things like that. It just depends upon what the agency wants for drive and the behavior of the dog. But
So what does that breed have that you want?
this dog, they have very, very high drives. So he doesn't ever quit, and that's kind of hard for me because when I first got him, it was a big adjustment period. I didn't realize how much of a high drive these dogs have. So it was hard for me to wrangle him in at first, but now that he's starting to age, he's starting to settle down more. So he likes to work though; he doesn't give up.
Wow.
So, which is good.
what's typical service expectancy on?
It depends on the breed, but typically the Malinois can go up to 10 years. I've seen some that go up to 15, but that's pretty rare because they start developing arthritis and things like that. So. But the Shepherds can go up to 8 to 10, and the Dutch Shepherds are pretty much similar to these guys where they go up to 10. So,
What
Is
happens?
he protective of you?
absolutely, yep. That's one of the training requirements for the USPCA's. It's called handler protection. So we do a scenario, so to speak, where he has to certify in that. So, what was your question?
What happens to him after his days of service are finished?
I pay a small fee for him, and then he's mine.
Oh, you can take him if you want him. Okay, good.
Yep. Yeah.
So you wanna see his protective skills, Linda?
Yeah.
I have a sleeve in
I'll
my
go and
car.
touch you.
I've seen Commander Heath try and run.
And what you guys didn't see is
It
what,
won't be me, but.
when I approached Jesse in the back of the room before I greeted him, I said, am I okay to shake your hand? Cause I didn't want, and it doesn't happen often, but from time to time, if the dog gets caught off guard, it can take that as a, and when he reached out his hand, the dog was
Aggressive
fine.
behavior. He
But-
feels like you're being aggressive if you shake his hand.
It could be construed as that.
Yeah.
And I've been
Never start.
I've been bitten with a sleeve and I don't need to be bitten without one, so,
It's not fun,
no.
not at all.
Do you, okay, this is a personal question. Are you married?
I am,
Do you have children?
I do not.
Oh, because I was wondering how they are then around children.
Yeah, one of my other buddies who works with us here at the sheriff's office is also a canine handler, and he has the same breed of dog, and he has kids, and his dog's fine around his children.
Okay, they know the family.
Yeah, so we have a bonding period when we first get them, excuse me. We have a bonding period when we first get them, and part of that is introducing them to the family and establishing a pack mentality and allowing the dog to understand that he's not in charge, that the people in the household are.
Oh,
And there's training that goes along with that, but they understand, like, when I've been home with him and my wife, excuse me, I got dog hair in my mouth. When I'm at home with my wife, he understands that she's in charge as well. So he can't make decisions on his own if she tries to tell him to do something, so,
Would he be as protective of her?
yes, he is.
when you have company, do you have to put him in a kennel or something then?
I do, yeah. Only for safety purposes, especially if he's never been around those people before. I don't want him exposed to those people just for safety purposes, because he is a working dog, and I don't want to have to explain that to the sheriff, so.
Yeah, okay,
So, yeah.
interesting.
You guys have any more questions?
So we've talked before, so he
Yeah.
gets exercise. I know last year when we had some questions before our festival, we were having some problems with
Yes.
vandalism,
Yep,
and we talked about him coming out, and you
Mhm.
can exercise him out in the park at night or in the
Yeah.
field.
yeah,
And,
yeah. And I frequently use the fire department for narcotics training for him too, so, yeah, we're out here quite often doing training, so, yeah, just so he gets exercise and the fundamental training that he needs, so.
So
It's
you
a
ever
nice
take him
area
down
to
to
do
Twin
it.
Lakes Park?
Excuse me?
You ever take him down to Twin Lakes then?
Sometimes, it depends on how busy it is in the summertime.
I was gonna say, after dark, we have a parking lot there, we tend to find needles and other
Yeah,
things in.
yeah,
so.
I do take him down there, at nighttime, but if I do let him out, I keep him on lead only because I don't know if there are people that are down there fishing or whatever, so I don't want him to find somebody in the dark without a lead on, so.
So the park does close at sunset.
That is true, that is true. Good boy.
Anybody else for Jesse or Diesel? He is a pretty one.
Yeah.
You guys rotate shifts, or are you all day or all night, or how do you?
All night shift.
You're
It's,
all night.
Yep, 6 PM to 6 AM, so. Out, down. We go to any canine call, down. We go to any canine calls that are in the county that we're requested to. Within reason, there's a lot of other agencies that have dogs too. But if they're not working, I'll more than happy to go down there and assist those cities. So, yeah.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate the opportunity to have Diesel working in our community too, so.
Well, unfortunately, I'm a lot less interesting because I don't have a canine partner with me.
Do you have any musical skills?
But I do not. No, I don't think anybody wants to hear me try to do that. So
We keep trying to get the commander to do a little dance.
I'm sure he'd be happy too, but
I've tried.
I don't know.
Maybe not tonight.
I'm Deputy Eric Turner. I've been with the Sheriff's Office as a whole for about 10 years now. In my current role for about 4.5 years on the road. I spent 1 year in our jail, a year in our courthouse, and then did my internship and as a student employee, and I've held a lot of titles within the office so far. Let's see, on top of just the normal patrol duties that I have, I do patrol level crime scene processing. So any property crimes, essentially stolen vehicles that we find, burglaries and whatnot, and I go out to the scenes and I can dust for fingerprints, do DNA swabs for touch DNA, and process them for evidence that normal patrol deputies that don't have the extra training that I've received can't do. And then also I'm one of our drone pilots. So it's a fairly new program that we've developed in the last, I'd say 4 years or so. And I've been doing that for about a year now. So it's a pretty neat set of equipment and technology that we have to help out, and we work hand in hand with the K-9 team a lot when tracking suspects or missing people and stuff like that. So
We had the drone out here 2 years ago at the festival.
yeah, I thought about that. I should have brought one of them up, but would have been a
Well, if we can get it for the festival again, that'd be nice.
yeah. We have 4 different drones currently. 2 which are larger outdoor units that have big zoom cameras and FLIR, the infrared camera on them. And then we have 2 smaller ones that are more meant for indoor use, searching houses, stuff like that. We've assisted the SWAT team a couple times with them as well, where if there's somebody held up in a house and we can open a door or a window, we can fly the drone through the door or window and search a house with it.
Oh, cool.
So there's some pretty neat applications that we have. So.
So how often do you think the drones are being used?
There's some times where we can go a week or so without using it. And just like the canines, we travel all over the county, helping out other agencies. I think as of right now, Coon Rapids, they just bought 1 unit, 1 drone, and established their or trying to establish their program. So other than that, we're the only entity in the county that has that capability. So, I mean, could be a week without using it, and then there's other days where I'm in Blaine and then Fridley and Columbia Heights and anywhere, maybe 3 or 4 times I could go out and deploy the drones. So it's we use it quite often. We use it quite a bit.
Are your hours evening hours too?
Yep, the same as Deputy Cutler. I work 6:30 to 6:30 though. So.
How long do you have to work that kind of shift before you can go to a day shift?
Oh boy. It depends on how everybody feels that year. There's some times where senior deputies that have been around for 15 or 20 years that could very easily work a day shift, want to come and work a night shift, and it opens up an availability for somebody that has less seniority to be able to work days. But generally speaking, to get on a day shift, I would say roughly 10 years or so to work a normal day shift.
Okay.
We also have power shifts that work from 2:30 to 2:30, 2:30 in the afternoon to 2:30 in the morning, and usually those it's anywhere from that 5 to 8 year range to be able to achieve a shift like that. So,
Do you have a regular 5-day week, or do weekends, or how do those shifts work?
so our rotation for almost every deputy that's on patrol right now, we do a rotating schedule. So we work 5 days on, have 5 days off, work 2 days on, and then 2 days off. So we work the same weekdays every week. So like myself and Deputy Cutler and Sergeant Slavic, we work every Monday and Tuesday, and then we're off every Wednesday and Thursday, and we work every other Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we have every other weekend off, and the 5 days off are quite nice to be able to unwind a little bit and
Especially with that shift.
yeah,
Yes.
yep. Spend some time with the family
Yeah.
and stuff. So
That's good.
I'm married and have a 2-year-old and number
Yeah.
2 on the way. So it's due in September. So we're actually going through the process of our house is being listed for sale. Actually tomorrow it should go on the market. And if anybody knows anybody that's interested in buying a house, we're in Monticello, so we're a little ways away from the county, but looking to move a little closer. And
Just encouragement with the interest rates. My daughter's in the mortgage business.
yep.
They had 700 new entries, people applying for mortgages yesterday.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. It is a good time to buy right now, so hopefully we have some luck.
Great.
So what can you tell us about? You working now then?
Yep, so just like Deputy Cutler, we're considered county-wides. So what that means essentially is every day we switch back and forth from working the west side of the county or the east side of the county. So, like tonight, I'm assigned to the west side of the county, so I essentially am assigned to work anything from University Avenue, the border between like East Bethel and Oak Grove, all the way over to the Elk River border, the Elk River now then border, the county borders. So I'm responsible for patrolling now then. Any calls that get dispatched will come straight to me for the city. And then like Deputy Keller, he's working the east side of the county, so he'll work anything from University Avenue all the way over to 35, essentially, all the way over to Columbus, Linwood, and their eastern borders, so.
Is that Anoka then? County, is it,
Yep.
that's all Anoka County?
Yep.
Wow.
So, yeah, Anoka County is a pretty expansive space, so. And then we assist like Oak Grove with their deputies, if they have calls that require more than one deputy. Usually I'm the person that assists them. At night, St. Francis only has one officer that works for part of the time, so if there's something that they need any additional help with, we tend to go up there and help them out as well. So we make our way around the whole west side of the county, kind of.
Good.
But typically all your squads are single person?
Yes, yep, all of them are single person. There has been the rare occasion that we have several extra people working, or a couple extra people, and two people might partner up and go and work down in Columbia Heights or Fridley or patrol other areas of the county as well, where it's beneficial to have two people in a car. But up here in this area, it's generally speaking fairly quiet, and it's an easy community to work with, that's for sure, so.
Well, we're trying to keep it that way. So. We have a problem northeast that we have to deal with yet, but other than that, it's pretty quiet, so.
Absolutely.
Any questions for the deputy? Well, thank you very much. And we
Absolutely.
appreciate your service.
Good evening, council. My name is Mike Slavic. I've been with the sheriff's office for 20 years now. I just passed my 20th. My first 13 I spent in the jail, working as a detention deputy there, and then was promoted to sergeant, and then a brief stint as lieutenant before I moved out to a licensed position in the patrol division. I worked primarily the east side of the county, Linwood, East Bethel, Ham Lake. I moved to investigations in 2019, and I worked in that capacity for about 6-7 months, and then was promoted to the rank of sergeant in August of last year. And I've been working back on night shift since then. I liked working Linwood. I worked that contract for 3 years, and that's similar size and population, similar to now then. So I feel at home in these kind of smaller, lower population communities, just like in Linwood or any other smaller township or smaller city. We have the same problems. You guys have the same problems as in Andover or Blaine. It's just on a smaller scale. But we find methamphetamine out here. We find heroin. A lot of impaired drivers. So there's the same problems, just on a much smaller scale. And like Deputy Durner said, very easy community to work with, very helpful community. We get a lot of calls and a lot of tips from the citizens here in the city. So it's been a fantastic working relationship, and we can't, we wouldn't be as successful as we are finding these things without the cooperation with the community. So it's been fantastic. I supervise a team of about 15 people now in total that work the overnight shift. I work the same schedule as these guys, so we're a team within a team in the patrol division. So myself and my co-sergeant Joshua Hatton, we have about 15 to 17 people depending on the night, and we work in harmonious unity throughout our 5-day rotation. Work on training and all the other specialty functions that our office provides, like the drone services, the canine services. Sergeant Hatton's a member of the SWAT team. So we have a lot of different experience and things that all the members of our team bring to a night shift rotation 1, which is what we work. Other than that, I am even less interesting than Deputy Cutler or Deputy Durner. I have 2 kids, 6 and my boy just turned 2 yesterday. We live in Ham Lake, and we used to live out in Otsego and moved closer into the county. So I don't know what else I can.
How does your family take to the change in shifts and stuff? You've settled in kind of back on nights. How's that working with?
We have, it's a different period. My daughter was bummed that Daddy wouldn't be home at night, but she's super excited that she gets to ride the bus. Whereas if I work day shift, we would have to drop her off at Adventures Plus in the morning and then pick her up after the bus left. So now she gets to ride the bus with her friends. So it's finding that silver lining, and she loves that Daddy's home more often, more days, and that I'm home in the morning with her before she goes to school, so we get to have our daddy-daughter time in the morning. So you find ways to work it, and I can pretty much assume that's the same for every deputy on my team and probably every officer in the state. You find the ways to work it with your family, and my family's been super understanding over the last 20 years that we are probably going to miss Christmases and miss birthdays, and we just find different days to do it. My sister's in the healthcare field, so trying to find the day with my family and her family to get together with our folks is sometimes interesting. Sometimes we're celebrating Christmas in the middle of January, so but you find ways, and the transition from day shift to night shift, sleeping wise, pluses and minuses. Minus, I have to sleep when the daylight's, when the sun's high in the sky, so there's no amount of darkening shades or blindfolds that are going to keep that sun out. But the plus is everyone's out of the house. There's no snoring, there's no, Daddy, I had a nightmare. It's, Daddy has, complete quiet to himself to get that sleep. So it's a little bit of a change, days to nights, but like I said, it's been good overall.
So you adjust then where you're sleeping nights, but then when you go to the 5 days off, then you're awake during the day?
Yep.
Or you stay on that same schedule, even when you're 5 days off?
It would be ideal to try to stay on the same schedule personally, but for the family, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I want to be up. I want to be with the kids, obviously, and the wife. So, it's just a slow progression, stepping back down. Maybe. So this is our last day. We'll be off the next 5 days. This is the end of our 5-day rotation. So when I get home in the morning, actually I have court, so I got to stay up anyway. But normally I would just probably stay up a little later and sleep maybe only 4 or 5 hours, and then hopefully that would
Help you adjust back
make me
again.
sleepy. So by Wednesday night, I'm
So
ready-
that first
ready
day
to-
back after 5 days off, do we not want to encounter you on that shift?
It's weird, but I usually feel the most rested. I'm ready to go. I'm recharged. My batteries are recharged, and I want to get back to work and ready to get back with the team and go fight some crime out here. So we're usually pretty amped up and ready to go on that first day.
Sure.
So with the night patrols out here, do you guys interact with our businesses much at all?
So I know that myself and my team we're out here quite a bit at night doing business checks, especially up and down Iguana. I know we're out here, myself and Sergeant Hatton, both make it a point to get to Twin Lakes Park every night and go through there, because I know we've had a lot of issues in the park with people being there after hours. But between the two drinking establishments that are out here and your business park there, especially on Iguana, we are out here quite a bit interacting with the businesses that are opened, or at least doing the business checks to make sure that everything's secure at these businesses.
Great. That's good to know.
Anything else from the council or staff? Again, thank you for your service and thank your team.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I have had, years ago when I was putting up campaign signs along Iguana, I was asked for well, actually they must have recognized me, because once the light went on me, it was, oh, it's you. Just putting up campaign signs. Sheriff,
Well, just
welcome
wanna-
to Now Then.
Yes, thank you very much. Good to be back. I won't bore you with my resume. I've had the privilege to serve a lot of different capacities over the years, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that it's been 10 years in this position. So it continues to be a thrill ride every day. I'm privileged to be part of such an amazing team. You got to meet a small handful of the folks tonight that serve now, then, and serve all the citizens of Anoka County, and I truly do consider it a blessing to have the privilege to be elected as the sheriff in a county in which we have such an amazing team. And they've heard me say it, and I hope they never take it as lip service, because having the privilege and the opportunity to travel the state of Minnesota, I'm on the Minnesota Sheriff's Association Executive Board, and I'm on the Executive Board for the National Sheriff's Association, and so I get to meet law enforcement officers from all over the country. And when I say I would put the Anoka County team up against anybody, I absolutely mean it. And the spirit of collaboration, cooperation, and innovation, you heard the drone program talked about. I mean, we were the first law enforcement agency in the state to have an approved FAA UAS or drone program up and running, and that's been our mantra for many, many years. We try to be innovative. We try to think outside the box. How do we provide better, more efficient services to the citizens that we proudly serve? And then my command staff all knows very well, if they bring an idea and it's something we're going to pursue it with excellence. And using the UAS or the drone program as another example, we're going to have model policies, ideal practices. We're going to work with the partners that are impacted by this, and in that case, the FAA. We want to make sure our folks are actually pilots. And we went through a lot of extra training and certifications that you wouldn't necessarily have to do, but our mantra is basically we want to be the example of how to do things right and never to be the example of the headline on how they do things wrong. And that will continue to be a part of our culture for I'm sure long after I'm gone, because of the team and the people that we hire and the experts and professionals that we bring on board. So I appreciate you taking the time to have our team here tonight. I mean, you got a little taste of the deputies. The great thing about the folks working the street is that, as you know, that is where the magic happens. That's where the relationships are built. That's where the great things are occurring day in and day out. What we sometimes forget about the contract is, you see a couple of faces here tonight, and we know that they're the ones serving, but they're representative of a much larger group of deputies and sergeants who are out there day in and day out that will come and provide those services. And some of the benefits with the contract with the sheriff's office that is easy to forget sometimes because we don't necessarily see it, is everything that it takes to put them here. The hiring, the training, the background investigations, from uniforms to state licensing requirements, things like that. But then also knowing that the economy of scale that the sheriff's office brings to the table. Unfortunately, I know it never happens now then, but sometimes squads hit deer. You'll
We've got
never.
an ordinance against that.
Yes, and we appreciate that. Or heaven forbid, sometimes a deputy might roll an ankle or hurt a knee. But those are the kind of things that happen in the real world. The nice thing about the contract is you'll never experience a hiccup because of that economy of scale. That squad will be replaced. The deputy will be backfilled. There's never going to be. We don't come back at the end of the year and say, hey, we got a whole bunch of extra overtime that we weren't counting on, and this is going to be a fallout effect. That's not how our contracts work. You know the rate for the year ahead of time. And then with that service is also certainly the supervision. I mean, we talk about having 2 sergeants on all the time for the street, but they also have a depth of other supervisors available to them all the way up through the ranks, through the divisions, to include myself. And I don't know that you all have my cell number, but you're welcome to it, and I generally answer 24/7. I know the mayor's reached out to me after hours, and you're always welcome to over the years. But the folks that you see working the street here are then supported by the entire patrol division. And if you haven't been to our open house in September, I strongly encourage you to come check out your sheriff's office. I've said I'm privileged to hold this seat, but it is your sheriff's office, and so we want you to come and see all the capabilities that are available to you should it become necessary. And like I said, you don't want to see our deputies, you don't want to see a firefighter, but if and when it should hit the fan, the deputies are available and respond, and they will do what is necessary. Whether it's 1 low priority call or 3 very high priority calls, we will send whatever resources are necessary to get the job done. And we're one of the very few agencies who have those kind of capabilities. Beyond just the patrol division, with all the specialty units attached there, the sheriff's office has 6 different divisions. and from investigations in jail and court security and all the different umbrellas that come together, the administration division, and each of our 6 divisions has numerous specialty units as well. And the thing I've really appreciated about learning this role more and more over the years is how cohesively everybody works together. We know our mission, and our mission statement is to protect and serve the community in a manner that preserves the public trust. We know that there's nothing more paramount than the public trust, and we see in other parts of the country what happens when that's absent. And so that's, I don't know if you guys have ever, if my team has ever heard me use the word ambassador. And as they smile and smirk, because it is a constant part of my emails and a constant part of my talks. I jokingly say inside of our walls, I can train a monkey to write a report, a damaged mailbox report, or write a traffic ticket. But it takes somebody special to build relationships. And for me, it goes back to, I think, to when I was in my field training program when I first started, and one of my training officers said, your objective is when you take people to jail to have them thank you. And I thought, who in their right mind is ever going to thank me for bringing them to jail? Until I saw it happen. And then that kind of became my own little personal challenge to myself. And you do. You learn how, it's amazing how when you treat everyone with respect, how it reciprocates. And again, it's a part of our culture. It's a part of who we are. I'm grateful to have not just these 3 men, but the entire Sheriff's Office of men and women that are out there doing a great job as ambassadors in the community. And I know I've probably started rambling off on a tangent. They're going, cut it, Sheriff. But so I will. I'll take a breath. I'll step back. But before I turn it over to Commander Heath, I'll just, if you have any questions or comments for me, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them.
How big is your staff?
Including volunteers, we're at about 400.
Wow.
We certainly have appreciated, these 8 years that we've had a great working relationship.
Absolutely.
And you've been true to your word. We understand that cost increases as they come, are contractual, and but it certainly has been very consistent with what you said 8 years ago, and we've seen it year in and year out. So we thank you for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Partnership. We will try and get down to the open house this year, and I've been to it before. But some of the new ones on the council, it really is impressive to see how it all works.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Well, thank you all so much for the time. Again, we really appreciate coming up. It's nice to see everybody. Nice to meet some new faces. And don't hesitate. Again, anytime you need anything, that's what we're here for. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Especially Diesel.
Yeah.
Very cooperative.
Well, and now I realize I failed to plan this very well since I get to try to follow all of that. But just so you
So is
guys.
it any more difficult with your boss sitting right next to you?
No, I'm quite comfortable with that. I'm more nervous about messing up in front of these gentlemen. The sheriff has known me long enough that he knows all the flaws, so there's not anything new that's gonna be revealed there. But as I was standing here and listening, I might not have been able to speak to the whole council about my experience. I know I've spoken with the mayor, and but just so everybody's aware, I'm finishing up my 28th year in this business. This is the 4th police agency I've worked for. I worked for a sheriff's office in central Minnesota, as well as a police department out there. And then I spent 4 years in the city of St. Francis as a police officer there. And I've spent the other 17 here. So, and I've worked everything from being a patrol deputy up through our crime lab, worked as a detective, was a sergeant and a lieutenant, and now a commander. So I've been very fortunate to experience all that, or a lot of what our office has to offer. So when it comes to patrolling, back in my patrolling days, I loved working in an area like Now Then, because it was very similar to where I grew up and where I started my law enforcement career. So I got to go play in bigger areas like Andover and Blaine and playing around there. But when I wanted to decompress and relax and feel like I was a little bit closer to home, it was coming out to Now Then and places like Linwood to get back to a little bit more of my roots. So I've always had an appreciation for places like this. And I was just looking at my file when I was putting together my report for tonight, and I've been the liaison here since 2014. So it doesn't feel like that long, but I've spent quite a few meetings here standing talking and working with you all, so, and it's been good for me. I've appreciated it. So I don't have a ton of things I was gonna report on tonight. I know that, we've talked long enough for you guys, and I know you have an agenda to get to. But I did wanna bring up, I'm not sure if everybody was able to see on the news that there was, a confirmed case of the coronavirus here in Anoka County. I don't have a ton of information, but if the council would like it, I can provide a link to the county's website where they have other information that they're posting about that, and maybe Lori is already on that.
I think one of the council members forwarded that to me.
Okay,
Similar, but no.
Okay. Maybe
So-
different. So if you wouldn't mind sending that, please.
absolutely, I can forward that, and it has a nice link, and it may be beneficial for like the city's website if you so choose, because there's a link to some Minnesota Department of Health information, as well as CDC information, as well as a nice video that encapsulates kind of the issue itself. And it's pretty neutral. They're not ramping it up and not playing it off, so it just might be good information for people to see.
The person quarantined?
No.
The one that's-
I'm sorry, the one yes, they're
actually
hospitalized
in
at this
hospital
point.
in critical condition at this point.
Oh,
So-
really?
Yes,
I hadn't even heard that.
Person in their 30s.
It was just this afternoon.
Really?
yes.
And they had been, there's not, I don't have a lot of background information. I don't know if you've got more, Commander, but they were a person in their 30s, and they were in contact with somebody who had been overseas.
Yeah.
China or something?
Didn't say where, the report I got.
Yeah, and due to the data practices, things that surround this, there's not a ton of information out there. We have what we're giving is what we have. So that 30-year-old person that was in contact with somebody that was overseas is about it.
It's pretty strange for it to be critical already for a young person.
Yeah, and we don't know, most of the things that I've seen is that the people that are falling severely ill to this generally have some other type of compromise in their health already. And I don't know if that's the case with this 30-year-old, but that's what's been reported pretty consistently throughout this, is that they're either young people or an elderly population that have some other compromises already. So,
It's an unfortunate thing that there's so much trauma to this. That there's being a report in Australia that at least 50% of the people who have been diagnosed have recovered and are fine at this point. But we're hearing about, a particular nursing home in Seattle that is certainly ramping up the numbers. So it's hard to say people that have it that don't even know it, don't exhibit symptoms,
right.
people that have had it and recover. But it's certainly the tragic ones that we're hearing about. So.
Right.
And in certain countries, it's
Spreading quickly.
spreading
Yep.
quickly, yeah.
And the biggest message that keeps being, I was at a meeting with management members from all the departments in the county yesterday, and we're talking with public health and emergency management, and the biggest message that was stressed from them and we're trying to relay to people is just take whatever normal precautions you would when you're ill. Stay home, cover your cough. If you feel like you're sick, don't push it. Do regular things like washing hands, and the things that they're sharing is that general cleaning is enough to kill the virus. There doesn't need to be super chemicals. So just general cleaning of whatever you would use for household cleaners is enough to kill that. And that was information that they're seeing. So that's a positive sign. It's not some super virus. It's just a matter of trying to contain it as much as possible.
And stocking up on toilet paper won't do you a little bit.
No, we were chatting about that before we started, and that's one of those amazing things that people see. They see a message, and for whatever reason, they decide to follow that message blindly. And but yeah, I don't think right now is just take those normal precautions and stay up to date with things on like the Department of Health, Public Health, and the CDC. And I wouldn't take my cues on how I'm going to handle my health from any of the major news outlets. I'd go to one of the other places.
From a response, as I mentioned in my opening letter there, that when something happens in Nowland, it's you guys that show up first typically. So with the number of medicals, we had approximately 100 medicals last year. From a dispatch standpoint, are you doing anything different when you dispatch to say what type of call you're getting so that you're not sending a squad of people into?
Yes, so it's kind of an interesting, for the first time in my career, I've seen this where for years, and all the gentlemen sitting here can attest to this, we're always the first ones to get to a call, and when it's bad, fire departments and ambulances wait down the block until we tell them it's okay. Where now, for the first time in my career, we're actually taking precautions and saying, okay, if we're getting a call to a medical and somebody has flu-like symptoms, unless there's a true emergency, like there's an issue with breathing or something like that, we're not going to go in until the medics have an opportunity to maybe ask some of those questions, and if they need extra help, we'll come in. So we're introducing as few people into that scene as possible. If it's a true emergency, our staff is gonna go regardless of what the issue is, but, so the council understands a lot of the medical, not a lot, but some of the medicals we get are very routine. Where somebody's had flu-like symptoms for 3 days, they have a fever and have been vomiting. Well, that's not unless there's some other impairment or issue that's an emergency, we're just gonna stand by in the area and wait.
And just to elaborate, Mr. Mayor, you asked about dispatch. Our dispatch center has converted, so now if they get a call about flu-like symptoms, in the past, they might just send the deputy or send the emergency folks. But now they have begun to incorporate a couple of simple questions. Describe your flu-like symptoms, and have you traveled out of the country recently, or have you had any contact with somebody who's recently traveled out of the country? So they're being a little more, corona specific, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you guys use the same dispatch that fire would be on the same?
Yep, and
I don't want to send 5 firefighters in either to if we're not screening ahead of time.
correct. In just for perspective, those dispatchers are sitting in a room probably twice the size of this, and they have contact with each other, so that the dispatchers that are working with the fire departments are sometimes sitting within just feet of the dispatchers that are sending the deputies, so they're having those conversations, and they'll do what they can to limit the exposure to all of us. That's one of their jobs. They try to ferret things out for us, whether it's on the police side or for law enforcement. So, if there's no other questions, Lori, did you get the calls for service for the month, and was the council able to?
I believe they went out on Friday.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you got them.
Yeah.
You had a couple of hiccups, but if you look, calls for service, we're down just a little bit. We are at 106 for the month of February, so knock on wood.
Still got to figure out something northeast there.
One step
We
at a
had more
time.
calls there than medicals last year.
Yeah, one step at a time. And if I'd ask you not to bring it up in front of the deputies. These are the ones that have, and I say that tongue in cheek. These are the gentlemen that have to go out there and deal with that. I'm just the one that has to talk to you about it. So if you've sensed my frustration, I hazard a guess if we polled them, that their frustration would be significantly higher than mine.
Yeah, we've worked together on it for a long time.
Yes.
It's nice to get that resolved.
So,
Council, anything for the commander? Again, we appreciate your service too, and
absolutely.
extend our appreciation to the ranks.
I will. All right, thank you. I'll grab that card as well and make sure I get that where it needs to go. And I did forget,
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
April 20th is our visit to Central Communications, right?
Yes.
So, okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Looking forward to that, so, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You guys have a good night, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
I know, Commander, we got a ruffian in the crowd. We may not be able to let you leave yet.
I know, yeah, I think you'll be okay. Have a good night.
Thank you. We got no floor items.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryant.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
I just wanted to make one point on that consent agenda. We talked about Reed Coons or Coonsey?
I believe it's Coons.
Coons. And he's a younger gentleman. He will not be driving the trucks at this point.
Correct.
So other than the pickup. Okay. And you've done the screening and you're good to go? All right, motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Liz, we got a easement from Jasper.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a easement vacation for a portion of a drainage and utility easement. It's a lot that's been legally combined from 2 parcels into 1. That's already done, and this is just the formality to eliminate part of this easement so that Mr. Hazeman can construct his home and septic system. Fairly straightforward. So unless you have any questions, we would recommend approval.
Councilmember Bryan.
I did have one question for our planner. Liz, is there any reason why just part of that easement is being vacated and we wouldn't vacate the whole thing?
You mean the east-west part of it? Because there are easements always along lot lines.
Right.
Which are 10 feet, and then
Right.
there's a larger easement on that parcel over the ditch. So I think the engineer was thinking that maintaining a connection to the ditch would be positive, so that you have,
So we still keep the part, that's why we still keep the part in the back.
right. And he can pretty much, I mean, he can use that as he pleases, just as long as there's no structure in it.
And one of the problems was he was putting his septic on that lot line and on the easement. And so by putting something permanent on there, it needed to be vacated, so.
Right.
Only thing I would say is we should keep an eye on things like this. This is probably one, because we would anticipate, since there was no feedback other than that one neighbor sending a letter saying it's fine, because he knew the Murdahl division there. Probably be something we could do, especially on a slow night like that, just to bring it to council. If there's really no action for P and Z,
Oh, I see.
just bring that public hearing to council, because we knew that was gonna be a pretty quick and cut and dry one there, so.
Yeah, we certainly could. Sure.
I might have been sped things up from Mr. Hazeman, I don't know if he's building yet or not, but something to think about in the future. That
He started his home, so I knew he wasn't in a huge hurry. Thanks.
All right, so, accept the motion to approve the easement vacating.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
I would make a motion to approve the resolution vacating the drainage and utility easement dedicated on the plat of Murdahl Estates, second edition.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Comprehensive plan, so we need to get all our ducks in a row before we submit the final. Here, you were looking for direction on whether people wanted hard copy or electronic.
Correct.
For one,
Number 1, right.
Dan
So,
would like,
Electronic, please.
I knew that somehow.
I would like hard copy.
Okay.
This is quite expansive, right? mean,
It's, if we, it's an inch maybe thick. It's not like giant, but it's an inch or so. I mean, you could have it both ways, really. I mean, I just mostly need to know who wants a hard copy, and then we can make a few extra to keep at the city offices.
Well, hard copy's easier for me to go through, if it's okay, but I hate to waste all that paper too, I could do the other.
Well, it's not necessarily a waste, Linda, don't look at it that way, because it's gonna be in place for the next 10 years, so it's not.
You'll
Yeah.
give your copy back.
Oh, I will?
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on to it.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you'll give it back. When we're done, we give those things back.
Do we give anything else back? You better tell me now. I'm getting nervous here.
Anything you've thrown away, probably that.
I didn't throw that away.
No,
I'll
anything
take
you
an
have thrown
electronic
away.
copy, Liz.
Hard?
I'll take an electronic copy.
Oh, electronic, okay, thanks.
I'm gonna say Mary's gonna want a hard copy as well.
Yeah, I would have thought that also. Okay, great, thanks. So then the plan is to put, the formal approval of the official copy on for either next month or the following month. We'll get our ducks in order at our workshop this week on the new zoning district, and then any other changes we need, and we're almost there. So, perfect.
So regarding the meeting on Thursday, you'll have information to us? Huh?
For the packet.
Yeah, so we can come prepared to that. But one of the, met with Jaquel Hyder this last week. And she was mentioning that a number of cities now are putting in their zoning requirements on people that are near internet providers, that they have an internet plan, a broadband or a fiber plan for new developments.
Or even running just empty tubes.
Said at a minimum, running a casing or a, what did she call it?
Pipes or PVC or whatever. it was.
Oh, under streets or whatever, or in the new right-of-ways.
So they want to have it, they want to have a plan going in, but at minimum, when the right-of-way is going in, to avoid disruption later, to run a shell. And, but they have a plan. So right now, we're working with Midco, as they're putting together some costs for putting fiber throughout the city.
Okay,
Hope to have something within 2 months here. But certainly the district over on our east border, Comcast is in Oak Grove, and they're running fiber at this time.
okay,
Don't know what that's going to mean to us. You know, Comcast is also down in Ramsey, and Arvig's working Ramsey. Haven't heard back from any of those people on how it might affect now then. But it's something to, if you could just take a look at what cities are doing as far as requiring a fiber plan
okay,
for internet services. So we can discuss whether we want to incorporate that into our zoning. At a minimum, putting a shell in there so it's easier to run later. So.
okay, great. I will do that.
The other thing we should talk about, talk to CenturyLink, CenterPoint Energy, and they're gonna be coming back for a discussion on an area that they approached us on a year or so ago. They're looking to have that done this year, and then a phase 2 just north of that. We're gonna wanna talk to them about this new zone. Depending on how fast this develops, we're gonna wanna be able to put gas in there as well. I don't know how that'll affect our zoning, but it's something to consider now. And we can work with CenterPoint on, if Mr. Raisler develops aggressively, this will be the time to get gas in as well, so. And it's already in the area. Do you have gas in? So we just gotta see where it fits their plan, if we're gonna have a lot of homes at one time, so.
You do or don't, Dan?
I do not.
Okay.
I thought it came up 47.
I know the pipeline crosses, but it's like,
So we'll have to check.
I'm like in the middle of an empty zone.
Okay.
Anything else on the comp plan, Liz?
No, nothing else there.
Okay. So the road standards. This is one that came up, and I will say, I think it kind of confused the P and Z a little bit. It came up at the night of P and Z. And again, because they didn't know what to do with it, probably best to run it by us first to get direction so that we can send them direction rather than ask them for direction. But it's one of those things that, because it's going to come up with a lot split or a platting next month, you are right to say we need to get this decided. So watching the faces on P and Z, so we can avoid that here, if you could explain to us, what exactly are you asking the council to give direction on? And that, I was following it there, but obviously if these guys didn't see the video on that, if you could explain
Yes.
You know, give some context to it and then ask the question specifically so we can give direction.
Okay, so our ordinance currently requires paved roadways for all new streets.
Okay.
It's a difficult scenario for people that are doing 1 and 2 lot splits. It always has been. There was a time when the township and early city days allowed flag lots to be split with, or an access easement where 2 people could share a driveway and not necessarily have the full lot width or required street frontage on a public road. So in 2013, we made very positive changes in that direction by limiting the number of flag lots that we allow. People will now have to ask for conditional use permits to have a flag lot. So in other words, we don't just allow easement accesses everywhere. We want people to front on a public street and have a certain width of frontage and access to that street. There's numerous reasons why. We limit the flag lots to only dead-end situations where there is no future subdivision potential behind them or next to them. And it does, you know, it's a great use of that situation or that design element in many situations. But I feel like, you know, to try to help our residents, we've sort of looked for ways to get around this paving requirement. And I just want to be sure and to highlight the fact that the ordinance currently requires that. And, you know, whether or not we want to do anything different for a 1 or 2 lot split versus a larger plat. So our minor subdivisions, again, are the 1 and 2 lot splits that they can do. A 1 lot split administratively approved by me if there's no new street involved and they have street frontage. A 2 lot split residentially would come to you, and then anything 3 or more would have to be platted. So the minor subdivisions still require street frontage. And there have been cases in the past where the township and the city did require an extension of, we usually say, what Shane likes to see, the city engineer, is the extension of a street, the full width of a new lot. So if somebody splits their parcel, they have to extend that street the full width of the new lot. And we have cases where that has been required and residents have done that. They've built.
So when you say the full width of the lot, what does that mean?
So if our minimum lot width is 300 feet, and if there is assuming this is like a rectangular shaped lot, okay, if there is potential for expansion of that street even beyond that lot, then that street must go to the border of the property. So if it's
let's say it's coming off of Nowthen Boulevard, and you're saying the lot is, how much is bordering on Nowthen?
well, if they had 300 feet on Nowthen Boulevard, they wouldn't necessarily need a new street. But if the street's going into a property, you know.
Let's say the property in question is behind that lot on Nowthen Boulevard.
Right.
So there needs access back to a lot or 2 in the back there.
Right, so we basically say that the street has to be the full lot width, unless it's a cul-de-sac situation where we allow some deviation from that. But if your lot's 300 feet wide, then your street has to be 300 feet long, right in front of the lot. That is what the ordinance currently requires.
So if they're gonna access onto this new street,
Right.
it's gotta be at least 300 feet long.
They have to create their own street access, basically, in order to have a legal lot of record, the way it's currently written.
And the
So-
problem comes in if somebody's doing a 2 or 3 lot split. Let's say a family's dividing up property and wants their homes on that. Strictly reading this ordinance, it says you've got to put in minimal streets to access those. You're either gonna put in a cul-de-sac or streets the width of the lot to get back to the lots that are being created.
Right,
And because of what we've learned in years past by just having people put in cheap roads, we, years ago, instituted road standards. So now you have to put in proper base and proper asphalt.
They have to
for
be
it.
paid.
It has to be a 30-year road. What happens is if you have a developer doing that, they don't like it, but there's an opportunity to recapture their cost when they sell off multiple platted lots.
right,
If you have a family doing that, and it's 2 or 3 or 4 family homes, it becomes different, because they're not selling off any lots, they're simply trying to get access, legal access to their own properties. So the question is, how strictly are we going to enforce this? How uniformly are we gonna enforce it?
right.
Because if they're gonna put in a road, it's gotta be built to standards. And typically, I think we've heard from Shane, it's gonna be about $1 million a mile to do something like that, to put in a good road. Which most people, when they're dividing up property amongst family members, don't have that kind of money.
So, sorry, were you through?
Well, then, the problem becomes, if it isn't done, if we exercise our options as we have in the past to say, in this case, we're not gonna enforce it, at some point, somebody's gotta put in a road. And if it's the city that's gotta put it in, then we have to disperse that amongst taxpayers, and it really is benefiting just those limited number of properties.
Right. We seem to want to help the residents, which is not necessarily bad, except that we don't want to get stuck where we're allowing some deviation from our ordinance on a continual basis. Then that's a cue to me, a clue to me and all of you that we need to change that. So we could either go to just building a gravel cul-de-sac for a 1 or 2 lot split. We could go back to all gravel roads, you know, and then just require paved roads for plats. Sometimes there is a clause where a resident can only split his property once by meets and bounds, which means, you know, the longer descriptions. And then the second time they split, they have to plat it, so there could still be cases where there would be a smaller subdivision that would have to build a road. But more often than not, the 1 and 2 lot splits are the long legal descriptions by meets and bounds, instead of saying, you know, lot 1, block 1 of Linda's addition. You know, they're just descriptions like the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 10 or whatever. That's called meets and bounds descriptions. So, I just want to be sure we're treating everybody equally. Shane and I are not afraid to tell people, no, you have to pave a road, and that's the way it is. You can't split unless you pave the road. If you're gonna look at saying, okay, 1 and 2 lot splits, you have to dedicate the right of way and establish the base and put the gravel in, and then in the future you can pave the road. You know, we can have, but we need to be consistent with everybody, instead of trying to look for ways to deviate from our current standard.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
There should be a consistency.
Councilmember Greenberg.
so could we give them the choice between the two? You have to choose between a dirt or a paved? My guess is they'd always choose dirt.
Right, and
Is it like half the cost, a third of the cost?
Oh, it'd be
well,
probably a quarter of the cost.
yeah, I don't know, base is gonna be a big deal, and I was gonna suggest.
Depends on, like, yeah, so just if they're gonna put in a proper base,
Right,
and that is a compromise where they could put in a proper base. It depends on what that base is gonna do before it gets blacktop.
Right. and
Part of the
then-
problem we've had in some of these developments is they didn't put a proper base in.
Right,
It basically took the dirt out of the ditch and put it on and threw some blacktop over it.
yeah, sometimes the base and the, construction is the expensive part. And the other question would be, well, how long is it gonna sit like that? Because then you've got all those years of maintenance of the gravel, sometimes far exceeds what it would cost to pave it.
And even that's come up recently at some of our road hearings, is people are questioning, why am I being assessed for this blacktop when you put in tens of thousands of dollars worth of gravel every year and nobody's getting assessed for that? The assumption is if you're on a gravel road, you can do it for nothing. If you're on a blacktop road, you can get assessed for it. So, maintaining those roads there is cost to the city that we're absorbing without actually addressing the benefiting properties. But if they put in a proper base, then how long do they have to blacktop it? Because by the time you get on a blacktopping it, that may not be
Right.
any value as a base anymore.
Right, and maybe there's a time period that they have to complete the construction. Maybe it doesn't have to be done in, within 6 months or a year. I don't know. I mean, that's probably gonna be harder to enforce once you get, issue a building permit to somebody. Because all they want is this new lot for this new house. So it is a little bit of a challenge, and I would maybe suggest too that we continue this discussion on Thursday when Shane's there, and we are talking about roads, because he could lend some insight. I know the city of Otsego at one time actually had Ron Wagner of Hawkinson prepare an estimate of what the, cost is for gravel road versus paved road over a certain period, and the gravel road ended up being more expensive. They were at one time thinking of, having some sort of a surcharge fee for gravel roads. And it never
That'd go over well.
never flew, but,
But I think Shane said that too, when we did a road study a number of years ago, that maintenance cost wise, if you put in a good 30-year road, you're doing crack seal.
right,
Where you're maintaining gravel throughout the year and quite often re-graveling within 5 years.
right.
So it is something so right now on Thursday, it's a workshop, Lori. So we could add this to the workshop without having to, since it's not called as a special meeting. I think that would make sense to discuss this a little further, because
I do too.
there's nothing I think that we could even give P and Z any direction on if we wanted research, because we're not certain where we want to even go with it yet.
We're not ready, right?
So, accept a motion to table this to Thursday's workshop.
Second it.
So moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
One last thing. Do we have a current example of someone who just split and then had to pave? Or had to put in dirt?
We have several examples, yes, and I could bring those Thursday if you'd like, and we can kind of chat about what the differences were with the varying subdivisions. Some
And-
had to dedicate right away and didn't build anything, some,
Like in the case of a developer coming in and taking over the property versus someone who's just splitting it up because the estate, the parents have passed away and now they're splitting up the estate. You know,
Well, I don't think we should look at it, we need to look at it in terms of 1 or 2 lot splits versus
Yes.
plats, not not the family relationship of, because somebody may have 10 acres and wants to split 2 5s, maybe they need the money, who knows, there's umpteen different reasons why somebody could split and sell their other half, and it may not be to a family member. So, but yeah, it does pull at the heartstrings sometimes, but it's hard. Even though it's hard, we have to treat everybody the same, so.
Sure.
And one comment too, I did talk to Joe a little bit about, maintenance, and he said it's way easier to plow a paved cul-de-sac and not plow a lot of gravel cul-de-sacs and pushing that gravel into the circle and out into the ditches. So anyway, but yeah, well, obviously maintenance comes into play, so. Okay, well, good. We'll talk about it more in a couple days. Thank you.
So any other questions, comments? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Right.
Aye.
Motion's tabled. Hot patch asphalt heater. You guys all got the information? Anybody got any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan?
I think this is well worth pursuing if we're getting hot mix from Elk River and then having to bring it over to Rogers Lake. It's not gonna last very long. And if we can certainly cut off, make it more efficient, keep it hot, and I think in the long run, it's gonna keep our roads in better shape. And, if we're able to get a good deal on a brand new one, that it's certainly worth going forward. I know at least once or twice, I've heard Eric mention, boy, it'd be nice if we had a heater, or if there'd be a way to rent one or something, but renting's probably gonna get confusing, and if this is a deal, we can keep using it and or maybe even rent ours out.
This goes on and off the 1 ton?
Yes.
And so, you can take it off if you want to use that for something else? Okay. Well, it looks like you found a good deal. So, accept a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion, a second, any other discussion?
Mayor and Council, can I just say, I'm glad Joe came tonight, but I would just want to say a big thank you to Public Works Supervisor Joe for going out and finding this deal. This is, I mean, he got it for half the price, and it's a brand-new unit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I appreciate Joe's finding his demo, and it's certainly, I think it's gonna improve our effectiveness, it's gonna improve our safety. I think it's a winner all the way around, and the price that he found it at, I commend him as well. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Joe
Opposed?
Aye. I'm for it. I'm for it.
It's a little slow, but he's for it.
Okay, it was unanimous 4. So, Joe, thank you very much. How quickly can this be gotten? Thank you very much. A very good job on
Yes.
identifying it, locating it, and getting that demo in here. And we appreciate it. I want to, before we get to the network room, I realized in the consent agenda, one thing we didn't do, accept the donation from the Elk River Youth Hockey. Typically, we designate that, so you know where to put it when it comes in. I would like to designate that to our building fund.
We already have that donations marked for the general fund until we reach a certain amount. We've budgeted for a certain amount of donations to come in. Until we reach that, we can't.
So you're using that in
designate
general
it.
fund for other,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
when we get to that point, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're restocking the building
Correct.
fund after we take out the network rooms. All right, network room. Again, you've got the drawings. Right now, this would be supervised by Matt Lent, I assume,
Correct.
with the assistance of other staff as available and necessary.
Correct.
So understanding that it's important to get this electronic stuff moved, you've got some place for those files, I assume.
Yes, we do.
So there'll be a door on there. Is that gonna be a solid core door, do you know?
It will be a vented door. There
Vented door.
needs to be a vent on, yes.
It'll be vented out the front, not out the back of them.
Yes.
With the understanding that when we get the electronics out of the small conference room in the corner and out of the storeroom in the back there, that you will be looking for office equipment for the meeting room, for the conference room,
That would-
separate.
That would be my hope.
Okay. So when that's cleaned out, you'll get all the other stuff out of there, and then we'll take a look at chairs and tables. So, anybody want to make a motion on the network room?
So moved.
Move to approve as presented. We have a second.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Lori, anything you want to tell us other than what was in your note here?
Well, Mayor and Council, I just think it would be a really great idea to maintain our equipment much better, having it in one location, out of the washroom, in the maintenance shop, which was the place to put it at the time. And then taking the noisy equipment out of the conference room, so we can actually have a nice meeting room at the city offices. I think it will be very nice for the city.
Upon approval, how long do you think it'll take to complete this?
From what I understand, it could be a couple weeks, and it would be done.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then lastly here, we have the legislative conference. We've got some information on it here. It's an opportunity to meet your legislators, to go down and meet the governor, talk about things that are important to your city here, and hear what's going on at the state level. Helps you interact a little better when we do need things from our legislators. Right now, we'll be working with our legislators on some of our fire relief bills they're going through. So it's a good opportunity for us to be working with them. So the question was, if you've seen the information here, have any questions on it, we have to, by this week, get in our registration. And it is $109 per person to attend I think it's a day and a half, I guess, here, next week. So, opening it up to council members that may wish to go. I would like to go. And anybody else would like to go, we need to tell Lori, and then you would register us.
Correct.
So, Councilmember Bryan.
I've been tossing back and forth what we're going to get out of it. I know part of the conference was to meet your legislatures, and I know that it probably wouldn't hurt for what we are doing with the Relief Association to actually sit down, because to try to bind a few questions together. I just don't know if it's worth $109 to do it, or if we just set up something independently of that. I haven't been there, before, so I've just been going back and forth if it's to go or not to go. That is the question.
Okay. The deadline is the 15th, which is Friday. I think one of the things is you do get to meet with the governor. It's important not only to meet our legislators, but the league's intergovernmental relations staff, the people that we'll be going to and are working on broadband and internet things that are beyond just Relief Association, but other people that work for us through the league to get other things done in the city. So it's not just our own legislators, but the other ones that we would have to team with to get broader things through. So, but if you consider that, Lori would need to know by Friday morning?
Yes.
Are you gonna be in Friday? So I, for one, am a yes. Yes or no?
No.
No? And Joel?
No.
Okay, so, and Mary, I believe, will still be out of town. So Dan, if you get to Lori by Friday, yes or no?
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan,
if there is nothing else, motion to adjourn.
I second.
we are adjourned.